Northwest Europe is preparing for a significant temperature drop next week, with colder than usual conditions expected to sweep across countries like Germany and France. This sudden cold front will heighten the demand for heating, putting additional strain on energy systems. Gas storage levels, which have been used at an accelerated pace due to a mild week, are rapidly depleting after increased consumption in the colder months. Compounding the situation, low wind activity has reduced renewable energy output, forcing a greater reliance on gas for electricity generation. These pressures have driven gas prices up by approximately 50% this year. Countries that are heavily reliant on Russian gas are facing a complex energy landscape, especially as U.S. sanctions on Gazprom Bank are set to take effect on December 20, 2024. These sanctions are creating significant challenges for nations like Slovakia, Hungary, and Austria, which have long-term contracts with Gazprom. The new restrictions disrupt payment systems and risk further destabilizing energy supplies across Europe. In this video, we will explore Russia's ongoing energy disputes with several European countries, its decision to halt gas supplies to them, and the potential effects of the new U.S. sanctions on Gazprom. These sanctions could, in turn, cut off Russia's gas supply to Europe entirely. We'll also look at how Hungary, Slovakia, Austria, and Turkey are responding to this crisis, as well as the measures being taken to ensure continued energy supplies. Hungary is particularly concerned about potential disruptions to gas flows through Ukraine, a crucial transit corridor. Meanwhile, Slovakia is exploring alternative strategies to maintain gas supply. Austria, facing additional pressure after OMV ceased payments to Gazprom, must adapt quickly. Turkey, another major distributor of Russian gas via the Turk Stream pipeline, is negotiating with the U.S. for exemptions to continue using Gazprom Bank for transactions related to European gas. With European gas futures approaching their highest levels in a year, countries are considering alternative solutions. These include rerouting payments through sanctioned Russian banks or seeking special licenses from the U.S. Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC, to facilitate energy-related transactions. However, these measures could lead to prolonged disputes. The Russia-Ukraine conflict, which began in February 2022, has further strained EU-Russia energy relations. Once a major supplier of nearly 40% of the EU's gas, Russia's role has diminished significantly following sanctions and accusations of using energy as a political weapon. The Nord Stream pipeline has seen drastic cutbacks, and countries that resisted Russia's demand for payments in rubles have faced halted gas deliveries. In response, the EU has accelerated its efforts to diversify energy sources, ramping up liquefied natural gas, LNG imports from the US and Qatar, and investing more in renewable energy. This shift, combined with market instability, caused gas prices to skyrocket, peaking at over $300 per megawatt-hour in 2022, leading to inflation that affected households and industries across Europe. As of November 22, 2024, European natural gas prices have surged again, with benchmark Dutch Tidal Transfer Facility, TTF, futures rising by 2.61% to $46.86 per megawatt-hour due to concerns about potential disruptions. These developments come at a time when Ukraine is deploying advanced missiles against Russian targets, and the Russia-Ukraine gas transit agreement is nearing expiration, which could further strain supplies. The UK's energy regulator, Ofgem, has raised the energy price cap by £21, reflecting higher wholesale gas costs driven by political instability and severe weather conditions. This increases the average annual household energy bill to £1,738, underscoring the broader impact on European consumers. Historical context of EU-Russia energy relations. Energy trade between Russia and Europe began in earnest during the late 1960s, with Austria being one of the first countries to import Soviet gas. The DRBA pipeline, operational since 1964, was among the first major conduits supplying oil to Eastern Bloc allies. The Urengoy-Pomary-Urad pipeline, built between 1982 and 1984, further facilitated Russian gas exports to Western Europe. By the late 1980s, Soviet gas accounted for a significant portion of energy consumption in countries like Germany and France. In the early 1980s, the U.S., under the Reagan administration, expressed concerns about Europe's growing dependence on Soviet energy, fearing it would increase the USSR's influence in Western Europe. Despite U.S. efforts to halt pipeline construction, including restricting the sale of supplies and parts, the pipeline was completed, greatly boosting Russian gas exports to Europe. Post-Soviet era, following the collapse of the Soviet Union, energy trade between Russia and Europe expanded under agreements such as the 1994 Partnership and Cooperation Agreement, PCA. This agreement sought to strengthen political and economic ties, promote international peace, and foster economic cooperation. By 2005, energy had become the cornerstone of EU-Russia trade, with total trade exceeding $166 billion. Russia's trade surplus accounted for about 8% of its GDP, and it was the EU's third-largest trading partner, while the EU was Russia's most significant trading partner, making up over 50% of its trade. Energy-related exports from Russia made up approximately 65% of EU imports from the country. The European Union, EU, has historically relied on Russia for a significant portion of its energy needs. On average, approximately 28% of the EU's energy requirements were met through imports from Russia, with some countries even relying entirely on Russian gas, reaching up to 100% of their total energy imports. However, a major shift occurred in 2014 following the Ukraine crisis, particularly with Russia's annexation of Crimea. This event marked a pivotal turning point in EU-Russia energy relations and led to the imposition of sanctions targeting key sectors of the Russian economy, such as energy, finance, and defense. The sanctions aimed to limit Russia's access to European markets and critical technology, which disrupted long-standing energy collaborations. Among the sanctions imposed were restrictions on the import of goods from Crimea, investment bans in tourism services in the region, and prohibitions on the export of energy-related equipment and technology to Russia. These measures were specifically designed to impede Russia's ability to develop new oil resources, particularly those located in deep water, Arctic, and shale projects. In response to these sanctions, Russia took steps to diversify its energy export markets, notably by increasing its oil and gas supplies to China and other Asian nations. This strategic pivot was intended to reduce Russia's economic dependence on European markets and to establish new revenue streams. The sanctions had a tangible impact on EU-Russia trade, with EU imports from Russia decreasing significantly. By 2015, the EU's imports from Russia had dropped sharply, reflecting both the reduced energy imports and the broader economic effects of the sanctions. In response, the European Union intensified efforts to diversify its energy sources to enhance energy security and reduce its reliance on Russian energy supplies. The EU began increasing its imports of liquefied natural gas, LNG, from alternative sources such as the United States, Qatar, and other nations, while also investing heavily in renewable energy infrastructure and projects designed to facilitate energy imports from alternative sources. Fast forward to 2022, as the conflict between Russia and Ukraine escalated, the EU imposed further unprecedented sanctions on Russia. Between the first quarter of 2022 and the third quarter of 2024, EU imports of Russian energy fell by a staggering 86%. The volume of petroleum oil imports dropped to just 7% of what it had been in the first quarter of 2021, marking a sharp decline in Russia's energy exports to the EU. This dramatic reduction had a profound effect on the EU's trade balance with Russia, with the EU's trade deficit peaking at €46 billion in the second quarter of 2022, but decreasing to just €0.6 billion by the third quarter of 2024. Austria, historically a key hub for Russian gas, was among the countries hardest hit by the disruptions. OMV, the Austrian oil and gas company, announced that Gazprom had ceased deliveries due to arbitration disputes, which led to a sharp 2.7% increase in gas prices. This termination of energy supplies underscored the fragility of Europe's energy landscape and highlighted the urgent need for diversifying energy sources. Europe braced for what could be the coldest winter since the onset of the Ukraine war, putting additional strain on energy supplies already weakened by the reduction in Russian gas imports. Meteorologists forecast that, while temperatures may remain slightly above the long-term seasonal average, they would still be significantly colder than in recent years, exacerbating the challenges for energy systems across the continent. In Germany, Europe's largest power market, there was a projected increase in heating demand, with an average of 18 heating degree days expected over a 6 to 10-day period. This forecast was 3 days higher than the 10-year seasonal average, putting even more strain on energy resources as the colder weather set in. Other major European cities, such as Paris and Zurich, were also preparing for significant drops in temperature. In Paris, the temperature was expected to plummet to 0 degrees on December 10th, which was 5 degrees below the 30-year norm. Meanwhile, Zurich was bracing for temperatures to reach 8 degrees on December 11th, a staggering 9 degrees lower than the 30-year average. These extreme temperatures would likely increase energy consumption in some of Europe's largest metropolitan areas and place further pressure on local energy infrastructure. As the colder weather arrived, Europe was facing continued disruptions to its gas supplies, particularly after Russia halted gas deliveries to Austria and reduced exports to other European nations. In response, European countries were more reliant on alternative sources of energy, such as liquefied natural gas, LNG, from the United States, Qatar, and Norway. However, the high cost and logistical challenges associated with LNG have placed significant strain on national budgets and the broader energy market. The combination of U.S. sanctions on Gazprom Bank, a key financial institution facilitating payments for Russian gas exports, and Russia's cessation of gas exports to Europe has deeply reshaped Europe's energy landscape. Prior to these disruptions, natural gas from Russia historically accounted for about 40% of Europe's total gas imports. But Russia's decision to halt deliveries has left a considerable gap in supply. This gap has created ripple effects throughout global energy markets, leading to skyrocketing energy prices. In 2022, natural gas prices in Europe, which averaged $19 per megawatt-hour in 2020, surged to over $300 per megawatt-hour. Although the price stabilized somewhat in 2023, the spike significantly increased costs for industries such as steel, chemicals, and manufacturing, leading to reduced output and diminished competitiveness. European households also felt the strain, with energy bills more than doubling compared to pre-crisis levels. Governments across the EU have implemented subsidies and price caps to alleviate the financial burden on citizens, but these measures have strained national budgets. As winter approaches, concerns about supply disruptions are growing, especially with reduced gas storage levels. Despite efforts to refill storage tanks, many EU countries are at risk of facing rolling blackouts or energy rationing. Germany, which has historically been one of the largest consumers of Russian gas, has reopened coal plants and delayed the shutdown of its remaining nuclear reactors in an effort to secure energy supplies. Adding to the complexity, the Russia-Ukraine gas transit agreement is set to expire at the end of 2024. Under this agreement, Russia has been transiting approximately 40 billion cubic meters of natural gas annually through Ukraine to Europe. The expiration of this deal could exacerbate supply issues, cutting off a critical gas route to Central and Eastern Europe. Ukraine's energy infrastructure, already under immense strain due to the ongoing conflict, may be unable to serve as a reliable conduit for gas flows even if the agreement is extended. The uncertainty surrounding these developments is likely to destabilize European energy markets and further complicate efforts to secure long-term energy contracts with alternative suppliers. The combination of geopolitical tensions, supply constraints, and economic uncertainty highlights the urgent need for Europe to transition toward a more resilient and diversified energy system. However, achieving this transition presents significant challenges as the continent strives to balance immediate energy demands with long-term sustainability goals. The future of Europe's energy landscape will require innovative solutions, continued investment in renewable energy, and strategic partnerships to ensure energy security for years to come. Thank you for watching this video. We sincerely appreciate you joining us today. If you found our content valuable or thought-provoking, please consider supporting us by liking the video and subscribing to stay connected with our community. Your support means a great deal to us, and we invite you to explore more videos on our channel, which are now available for viewing on the screen.